Now, I'm very excited on the next edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio and for my YouTube channel. My guest is the fantastically talented Laurence Fox. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, life in lockdown is a bit strange. You've recently celebrated a birthday, so I must say a belated happy birthday to yourself.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was yesterday. It was a lovely day.
So, I mean, yeah, I was going to say, obviously being stuck in lockdown, it does make things tricky. Did you get to sort of do anything really sort of to mark the day?
Well, I drank some champagne, which was nice, and I had a birthday cake with my kids. I went for a run, the usual stuff that everyone seems to be doing to survive the madness of lockdown. Those healthy enough to do that is, so yeah, that's what I got up to.
Yeah, it is a very strange time that we're in. And what would you say is kind of the one thing that's kind of, things that are keeping you going? What have you been doing to keep yourself, occupied in these very strange times?
I think mainly exercise, and I do a sort of walk with my dad on every day around the park, and go with the kids to he's trying to keep kids entertained, which is tricky. So I think it's very difficult, but I'm lucky. I'm not living with three kids in a 2-bedroom flat, and I've got a bit of outside space, so I feel blessed really compared to others that have much more tricky situations than I do.
Now, we're hoping obviously life goes back to normal soon. For you, obviously, being an actor and a musician, has it affected your work life massively? And did you have projects that you were due to work on that have been delayed? How has it affected you?
There is no show business at all at the moment. Theatres are obviously in a desperate state because how do you do that? So goodness knows what's going to happen in regards to that. But my diary was nothing and not expected to fill up for quite some time. So I'm in that sort of chewing fingernail part of worrying about what the future holds financially. But, money's not everything in the world, is it?
Obviously being a musician, I imagine this has given you time to kind of perfect your art and do more of that side of things.
Well, I'm sat in my music room now. It does, but weirdly, I think the inactivity of a lockdown isn't particularly brilliant for creativity. I've got a lot of artist friends who, photographers and various, who they just don't feel inspired. So I think there's a sort of feeling of national subduement, isn't there? Or, for some people, it's like a nice long holiday, I suppose. But I've played strummed the odd chord. As far as perfecting music is concerned, I think there's probably a long way to go.
Would you say it's brought you closer together with, friends and family that you maybe, kind of lose touch with? Because, the world does seem to, although we're not able to see people now, would you say you feel that maybe, through things like Zoom that we're doing now and stuff like that, you've been able to connect more with people that you maybe don't get to see all that often?
I've certainly tried, especially in the sort of later stages of the lockdown, I've started to really connect with people more because you realise actually how much we are a very sociable species, mankind. So I've really started to reach out to chums and stuff, and the pub down the road has opened up a takeaway service, so that always helps to go and grab a pint and then go for a walk with a pint, which is quite interesting. But you've got to stay in touch with people, otherwise you get a bit tonto, don't you?
I was going to say, we don't want to end up in a state where you kind of never want to leave the house and you don't want to talk to people because you're sort of scared to. So I think that the more you can get out and do, obviously within reason, do stuff, it does, it helps your mental health as well.
I think it does, and mental health plays a big aspect in all of this, doesn't it? Because there's a lot going on. Obviously, there's a lot going on in hospitals, but there's also a lot going on inside homes behind closed doors, which is a cause of concern for everybody, I think. So, yeah.
Now, one project which obviously has kind of, it's been massive for you recently is obviously the new series White Lines, which I wanted to talk to you a bit about because it is, I've started watching it. I've seen the first 3 episodes and it is fantastic. First of all, for you, what was that like to film? Because it looks, beautiful locations, amazing cast. Tell us a bit about it.
Dream job, really. You know, it's not often that I'm usually called upon to play like sort of soldiers or cerebral posh people or whatever. And so I didn't really think I'd get the job in the first place, but I did, which was amazing. And then it was one of those jobs that we just had the most beautiful time. And it's insane, you know, it's a totally mad thing. And you get to do every single thing I do in it is crazy. There wasn't one normal bit to do. So as an actor, I think it's like a dream job, because you do get a bit, not that you get bored. I'm very grateful for work, but you do get a bit like, okay, so my acting career seems to be working its way up through the military ranks. I'm now kind of getting into lieutenant colonel territory.
Because I mean, it was now it's set in Ibiza. Was it actually filmed in Ibiza?
It was mostly filmed in Mallorca and Madrid, and there was some filming in Ibiza. But Ibiza's I don't know whether you've been to Ibiza, but it's a total madhouse, and I'm not sure the filming would have been easy to do there with amongst the hordes of crazy people having a laugh. So no, we did most of it in Mallorca, which is beautiful as well, and we all had the best time. You know, we were all in the same hotel. There was a bar on the roof. We had a great time. So,
I mean, obviously, I imagine when you're doing a project like that, there's obviously a lot of hard work. But did you get a chance to kind of relax a bit and kind of make the most of the weather and the location while you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I was sunbathing in October on my days off. You know, so I was like, I think I came to the conclusion I never wanted to come back to England. But the weather in the last couple of weeks has made me feel like it's great.
We've been very lucky, I think. Apart from we had that kind of dodgy couple of days where it went a bit downhill, but it seems to be, touch wood, getting a lot better.
Yeah.
Now, also in the series, you get to work with some amazing cast. Obviously, Daniel Mays, Angela Griffin, who you got to work with again. So it must have been nice to kind of work with people that you'd worked with before, but doing something different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, Ange was in Lewis with me, and she was, you know, I mean, she's super professional, but you could tell she wasn't really getting to stretch her wings. Is that right? Whatever the expression is. And so when we met up on that, and we just took one look at each other, and we're like, oh my God, what's no more asking people routine police questions. So it was
Now, for anyone who hasn't seen it, because I think it's #1 on Netflix at the moment. It's really doing well.
Number one streamed show world globally.
I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, give us a little taste for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, what it's about, and just give us a little insight into the plot line.
It's about a guy that goes missing four young people go to Ibiza in 20 years ago, and one of them goes missing, and his body is found 20 years later, and that guy's sister comes to the island to try and find out what happened to him, and she meets those other three plus millions of other members of stories and various storylines, and to find out what happened to him and what we've all become. And I was one of the ones that went out originally, and I've turned into a sort of Buddhist drug dealing guru, family therapist.
It's not really one for kids, I think we better point out, but it is, as I say, anyone who, you know, it's 10 episodes all around about sort of an hour, 50 minutes. Yeah. I mean, I say I'm 3 episodes in, I'm already hooked. I'm loving it. Yeah. So you must be so proud of what, you know, how popular it's gone on to be.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for me as well, it's a blessed distraction from the other stuff that's happened in my life the last 6 months. So it's nice that, I mean, you know, I knew when I read it, and I knew when we were doing it, you just know sometimes, and I thought this is going to be really, really good. It's obviously for actually, it's lots of audiences have really liked it. I'd be interested to know what the Lewis crowd think of it. Those that watch Lewis, I'm not convinced it's that sort of genre for them. But it's. I also think it's exacerbated. The enjoyment of it is exacerbated by the fact that we're all shut down, and it's about freedom and madness and chaos and you know, it's just so beautifully shot and beautifully created. It's just such a pleasure.
Because it's a joint venture, I believe, between the UK and Spain. So you've obviously got some Spanish actors in it as well, and you kind of get to see the kind of the way that obviously you guys are doing it, and then the sort of the Spanish stars from it. So it's nice to kind of have that mix of cultures and all that coming into it as well.
well, that's the world nowadays, and it's what's so wonderful about these productions, because, you know, streaming services stream all over the globe. So it's brilliant. I mean, I had to really work on my I can understand Spanish acting, which was great fun. But you know, you're meeting these complete legends of you know, Spanish film acting and theatre acting and TV acting, and you're just like, wow, and they're blowing you all away. So you're like, you know, unless you're a fan of foreign films, which, you know, I can be, but I'm not an avid watcher of foreign films, then, you know, you're introducing, especially an English audience, to a load of people who are just, you know, that they might not have seen otherwise necessarily. So it's really good.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, I've got still a bit of a way to go with the series, so loving it so far. Hopefully we'll get to see more as well in the future. So yeah, so I imagine with obviously the success of Lewis, and it was a big chunk of your life. So when it came to an end, I imagine that was quite hard for you, because it was a role that you'd sort of grown up doing, really.
Yeah, it was. I was interviewed by someone, and they said, you've been doing this show a quarter of your life, which
Wow.
I had. Yeah. So I was like, oh my Lord. And you don't really get into acting for that, even though it's an amazing thing to do, because you essentially form a family with a load of people, and it's great. But I did think to myself, you know, this is not necessarily what I got into it for. And while I've been very grateful for the financial security and the fact that, you know, you're in work, it's, you know, most actors would chop off their arm for one of those sorts of gigs. And I really enjoyed it for the years that I did it. But I just thought, you know, I've got to do something else. Otherwise, I'm going to be this forever. And I'm glad I did.
Do you think if the opportunity ever came back, do you think you would revisit that character again in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that character. It's quite nice playing somebody who's smarter than you are. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's quite nice to just go, you just kind of look clever and get all the smart lines. So that was fun. And yeah, I mean, why not? But you never know, do you? You know, look, I mean, 6 months ago, I had my summer holiday planned. So who knows what's happening tomorrow?
It just shows that, you know, life's unpredictable, and you just have to make the most of it while you've got the chance.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things that we saw you in previously, alongside your cousin Amelia Fox, was, of course, Celebrity Gogglebox. Now,
Yeah.
that looked like a lot of fun to film. I mean, was it strange having camera crews recording you watching TV? What was that like?
I've always had a massive soft spot for Gogglebox as a TV show, because I just think it's such a great idea. And so when they said, do you want to do it? And also I then got to see my cousin like on a regular basis and hang out and have a giggle. I'm like, what's not to like? So, you know, someone paid you to watch TV. It was great. Yeah. And I'm going to go back and do it again, but I'm now too worried about what, you know, there's just too much heat on whatever I say. So I thought I might just disappear into the background a bit.
But I mean, as I say, I imagine it's one of those things where obviously I mean, because sometimes you can just sit and watch TV and just get lost in it and you just don't say anything. But I imagine maybe you feel like you kind of have to say something because someone's watching.
Oh yeah. They do encourage you to say stuff. Sometimes they'll prompt you with a bit of stuff. But I mean, I'm such a blabbermouth that I've got no problem speaking. It's being quiet that I have a problem with.
Now, I mean, when life does eventually return back to normal, what have you got planned in the future? What are what are your next projects that you hope to be doing?
Well, I'm using this time to write something. I'm hoping that, you know, acting will resume. You know, you wait for that call from your agent, which is the actor's condition anyway. And just sort of trying to enjoy the kids, the fact that they're off, I'm building stuff with them. And, you know, I don't really know. I think we've all gone into a sort of collective sort of slump in a way, haven't we? And,
Bit of a daze. We don't know what's coming next.
Yeah, and you got this sort of frantic emergency which is going on behind closed doors, essentially, you know, and then you've got the people in the street and people in the parks, and it's just weird. It feels very Groundhog Day.
Yeah. And we want to obviously do our bit to help the NHS and, you know, to obviously keep their job load down as much as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, you sort of feel like sitting at home, you feel like you should be doing more, but at the same time, you can't really, because, you know, you're doing your bit to help what's going on.
You're doing your bit to help. There's it's important. I got friends that volunteered for to go and help, and it's amazing. That collective spirit is really inspiring. And hopefully now, with the stuff that's done, with the measures that have been put in place, we might be in a position to, start gently returning to normal life, because I'm not sure this can go on forever, can it? Otherwise, we'll all, someone's going to pay for it at some point, aren't they?
Exactly. I mean, I think for the world of TV and film, I think it'll be easier for those lot, for you guys to go back to that. Whereas I think theatre is going to be a lot trickier. We are obviously hearing of theatres closing, which is just awful. But obviously, it's going to be hard.
Theatres were already in a lot of trouble anyway, or especially with the repertory theatres and stuff, which is such a shame, because there is nothing like live entertainment of any kind, really. But obviously times change, don't they? It's going to be tricky. I think, hopefully they'll have a sort of test that you can just sort of walk through a door and they'll go, yeah, you're all right. Or no. I mean, who knows? I'm, again, not a scientist, but at some point, we'll have to go, okay. But I think that, that it's being handled okay. The NHS has managed to not be totally overwhelmed, has it? And we've, hopefully they've sorted out their PPE issues. So we'll see. I don't know, because then you start worrying about second waves and stuff, and also everyone's an epidemiologist. Have you noticed?
Everyone just seems to think they know best. Because I know that on the telly earlier, I saw like a mock-up of how theatres may look going forward, and it was like 2 seats and then big spaces, and I'm thinking, how will a theatre be able to continue running with such small audiences?
It won't. They really struggle anyway with because I think they call it going dark. So the worst thing for a theatre is for it to go dark, which means there's no show on in there, And essentially, I think you need a capacity of somewhere. I can't remember what the exact figure was, but I think you need at least an over 50% average capacity for a show to return its income. So if you're going to fill a theatre to 20%, then you're going to need some seriously rich benefactors who don't mind losing lots of money, or something else. But I want, whether the 2 metre rule becomes a 1 metre rule, because, as we all get more familiar with what the science is, because that always seems to fluctuate as well, doesn't it, from one day to the next.
And hopefully we'll have some form of vaccine soon that means that, it's kind of a lot less risk and a lot more safe for people to, because people are going to have to start, getting together and, being close again, because you can't just permanently always be a metre apart from everyone in your life. It'd be a strange world, I think.
Well, apparently there was a survey the other day that said 28% of people want the lockdown to remain, even if the government's 5 targets are met. So, some people are quite enjoying the jolly.
Yeah, there is that side of it as well. Now, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. But before we go, is there anything you'd like to say to the patients listening in hospital or anyone who's watching?
I've recently been in hospital. Well, I haven't personally, but someone very close to me was recently in acute care in the local hospital, and the staff were just incredible and the most wonderful people. And for those lying there, not lying there, for those sat there next to their loved ones and for their loved ones, just thoughts and prayers, man. It's a very difficult time, and we're lucky to have such a wonderful health service that look after people.
Thank you so much, Laurence. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keep safe. And thanks again for joining me.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone.